Greetings from Las Vegas. I'm Andy Iskoe with the Week 15 wrap-up for the major high-end contests here in Las Vegas. The football contest, NFL mostly, some college in between. As far as high-end, I'm defining that as entry fees of $1,000 or more, which you'll be able to see on the graphics below at the bottom as we go through each contest. Of the 5 contests we cover, we look at the first one that is the only one that combines NFL and college football, and that's the Ultimate Football Challenge by the Golden Nugget. They had 153 entries this year, so we don't look at a consensus, which I'll explain shortly when we get to the next contest. But we do look at the leaderboard, and thus far, with just 3 weeks remaining in the NFL and college seasons after this week, there is a single leader, has a record of 64, 37 and 4. That's an ATS record against the spread. 1 point for a win, half for a push, none for a loss. So this contestant, of the 7 picks each week, they've made 105 picks for the season, 66 of 105 potential points. That's a winning percentage of 62.9%. Good enough for a slim 1-point lead over the contestant in second. Of the 153 contestants or 153 entries, only 7 are currently hitting at a pace of 60% or more. That's just 4.6% of the field, or roughly 1 out of every 20 contestants is hitting at a 60% rate. And that's a little bit surprising, as I've pointed out throughout the season, given the fact that college football has generally been an area where the winning contestants in this contest are in the high 60s, low 70s, because of the greater selections and the greater volatility and difference in quality of teams at the collegiate level. Let's turn now to the NFL-only contests. And the first 3 I will talk about are the ones that are essentially the same format. Static NFL point spreads for all games of the upcoming week. Contestants make 5 selections against the spread. No limitations each week on who you can or can't pick, as we'll get to that in the final contest. And I look each week and report on the consensus of the top selections. That's the top 5, the 5 most popular for those who want to imitate or at least follow along how the field in general is performing. This past week, we begin with the Super Contest Gold, which is the highest of the high-end contests, with a $5,000 winner-take-all entry fee. $460,000 awaiting one winner. The consensus this past week was 3, 1, and 1 as far as the 5 most popular picks. The 3 winners were the Buffalo Bills, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Detroit Lions. The one loser was the number 1 selection of the week, the Tennessee Titans, and the one push was the Chicago Bears, losing by 3 at +3 in their game against the Cleveland Browns. For the season, the consensus is now 47, 25, and 3 for 48.5 of a potential 75 points. That's 64.7%, and that is an outstanding record for the consensus as a whole. Now, there are only 92 entries. Nonetheless, that's still very impressive. We'll take a look at the one leader, has a record of 47, 25, and 3, which, interesting enough, also equals the record of the consensus in terms of points, 48.5 of a possible 75. That is 64.7%, the same as the consensus. That's good enough for just a half-point lead over the field. Of the 92 entries, 14 of the field, much like last week, are at 60% or more. That's 45 out of the 75 possible points. 15.2% of the field in this high-end limited entry, not limited in terms of restrictions, just limited in the number of entries, hitting 60% or better. That's very, very good for the season. We turn next to the other contest sponsored by the Westgate, the Super Contest Classic. The previous was the Super Contest Gold. Again, looking at the consensus this past week, 3 and 2. The winners were the Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions, and the Baltimore Ravens, and the 2 losing selections, the Tennessee Titans and the New York Football Giants. For the season, the Super Contest Classic consensus now has a very impressive record of 44, 28, and 3. That's 45.5 out of 75 potential points. Good enough for a 60.7% winning percentage for the field as a whole. And what's impressive about that, unlike the 92 entries in the Super Contest Gold, 1,301 entries in the Super Contest Classic. So the field as a whole having an outstanding season. As I've remarked before, for many, many years, the consensus failed to even hit 50%, much less getting close to and now topping 60%. So congratulations to the field as a whole. There are two co-leaders this week with the equivalent of 51.5 points, again, because of the pushes. There are not identical records, but they work out to the same record. That's why we say or equivalent. 68.7% winning percentage for the leaders. That's a 1 point lead over two contestants tied for second. Of the 1,301 entries, 121 are at 60% or better. That's 9.3% of the field, and it's been pretty much around that 8 to 10% of the field really over the last 7 or 8 weeks. So very nice percentage, having very successful seasons. In this contest, the top 30 plus ties get paid. Right now, there are 10 contestants or 10 entries tied for places 26 through 35. And I mention this because you'd like to know what it takes to actually cash in some of these high-end contests. Well, in this contest right now, 63.3% is the percentage you need to be hitting to win or share in that final prize place of 100. So 10 people tied for actually the final 10 spots. So they each would get 10% of whatever the 30th spot pays. We turn now to the two newest contests in Las Vegas that have gained a lot of steam, a lot of momentum, a lot of popularity, and a lot of coverage over the 4 and 5 years that they've been in effect. The first contest is called the Circa Millions, and by that, the millions indicates that's the first place prize in this contest. It's guaranteed, so regardless of the number of entries, and in fact, they needed 6,000 entries to meet a $6 million guarantee for the contest, of which 1 million goes to the first place finisher, and there are other in-season contests that carry significant prizes as well. 5,274 entries, so the Circa had to add an additional $626,000 to meet that $6 million guarantee. Again, reporting on the consensus this past week, 4-1 for the consensus. The winners, the Buffalo Bills, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and the LA Rams. The one loser was the most popular selection in this contest, the Tennessee Titans, who came up short in their game, upset at home as a small favorite against the Houston Texans. For the year, the consensus of those 5 top selections, 42, 30, and 3. That's 43.5 of a possible 75 points, 58.0% the winning percentage for the consensus. And while that is not as good as what we just saw in the Westgate, consider that there are almost 5,300 contestants contributing to that consensus. That's an outstanding record given the size of the field. The one leader in the Circa Millions contest has a record of 54, 20, and 1. That's 54.5 of 75 potential points, or a 72.7 winning percentage, again, which is outstanding, and especially in a field so large. It's roughly around what we've had many of the winners of these various contests hit over the past 5 or 6 years as the contestant field has grown in most of these contests. That's good enough for a 2-point lead over the second place contestants, and of the 5,274 entries, 440 of them are hitting at 60% or more. That's a very nice, healthy percentage of the field. 8.4% of the field enjoying that kind of success. In the main Circa Millions contest, the top 100 plus ties collect. 29 are currently tied for first place, for the final places, which actually comprise place number 77 through place number 105. And that to be in the position to cash right now, 64.0% is what it takes to be cashing. Again, they pay more than 3 times the amount of places as the Westgate Super Contest, where the percentage to collect is a little bit lower, but 100 places still, if you can finish in the top 100, you get a nice little return on your investment. And finally, we save the best for last, or at least the most lucrative one for last, and that's the one that's gotten the significant majority of the press coverage worldwide, not just within the United States and certainly not within Nevada. And that's the Circa Survivor Contest. Rules very simple. You pick one team a week in the NFL. If that team wins straight up, you advance. If that team either loses or ties, that entry is eliminated. You can only use a team once throughout the season. The NFL season consists of 18 weeks. The contest goes 20 weeks to increase the odds of there being very few, if any, people that go the full length of the season being perfect. And that is a split week, two selections during Christmas week, 2 selections during Thanksgiving week. They're not all made at the same time. They're broken into two different segments. So you pick the first half if you're right, then you advance to the second segment for that week. The original field consisted of some 9,267 entries for a prize pool of $9,267,000. Eliminated through the first 14 weeks of the NFL season, that's the first 15 weeks because of Thanksgiving of the contest season, 9,254. That's 99.86% of the original entry field, leaving just 13 entries alive heading into this past weekend. And of those 13 entries, 10 advanced, 3 were eliminated, 2 on the Tennessee Titans, 1 on the Green Bay Packers. So that leaves just 10 contestants remaining in the Circa Survivor contest, 0.11% of the original entry field. Now, we report each week what's the value of each entry. That still remains. A little bit easier to do the math this week with just 10 entries alive. The value of each entry, not quite yet $1 million, $926,700 for those who still have one of those 10 remaining, perhaps even more. People have more than one, I believe. At this point, however, all the contestants have only one entry remaining, and that sets up the possibility. The Circa doesn't sponsor it, but it does set up lines of credit for folks who want to hedge a little bit, hedging or perhaps even purchasing and selling a share of one of those entries. So $926,700, the value of each of those 10 remaining entries. We'll see if the field gets thinned out a little bit more as we report back next week the results of NFL week number 16. If you want more information about any of these contest rules, contest standings, where certain individuals that you might be following stand, etc., even before the week's games begin, at least the Sunday games begin, you can take a look for the consensus plays that I'll be reporting on the top 5 of those consensus plays next week. You can take a look at the tutorial at the bottom of this video, and that has the link for further information. And I'll be back next week. Wish all of you a wonderful holiday season and best of luck in your investments for week 16.